Shared space is an urban design approach that minimizes the segregation between modes of road user. This is done by removing features such as curbs, road surface markings, traffic signs, and traffic lights. Hans Ehrman and others have suggested that, by creating a greater sense of uncertainty and making it unclear who has priority, drivers will reduce their speed, in turn reducing the dominance of vehicles, reducing road casualty rates, and improving safety for other road users. Shared space design can take many different forms depending on the level of demarcation and segregation between different transportation modes. Variations of shared space are often used in urban settings, especially those that have been made nearly car-free, Dutch, autolowy, and as part of living streets within residential areas. As a separate concept, shared space normally applies to semi-open spaces on busier roads, and here it is controversial. Shared space is often opposed by organizations representing the interests of blind, partially sighted, and deaf people, who usually express a preference for the clear separation of pedestrian and vehicular traffic. History. The origin of the term is generally linked with the work of Dutch traffic engineer Hans Ehrman, who pioneered the method in the Dutch province of Friesland. Prior to the adoption of the term, street design projects carried out in Chambéry, France, by Michel Dérisière from the 1980s used the term pedestrian priority. The term was used by Tim Farrow to describe informal street layouts with no traffic demarcation, for example traffic calming guidelines, Devon County Council, 1991. The term has been widely applied, especially by Ben Hamilton Bailey, since the preparation of a European cooperation project in 2003. The European Shared Space Project, part of the Interreg IIIB North Sea program, developed new policies and methods for the design of public spaces with streets between 2004 and 2008 under the leadership of Hans Ehrman until his death in 2008. In 2014, a review of the evolution of the shared space concepts was offered in Transport Reviews, a transnational transdisciplinary journal. The Chartered Institution of Highways and Transportation has identified three broad types of street design approach that have been called shared space but which have a number of important differences. They suggest that the term shared space should be replaced by three new labels: pedestrian priority streets, informal streets, and enhanced streets. Philosophy and support. The goal of shared space is to improve the road safety and vibrancy of roads and junctions, particularly ones with high levels of pedestrian traffic, by encouraging negotiation of priority in shared areas between different road users. Shared space is a design approach rather than a design type characterized by standard features. Hans Ehrman suggested that an individual's behavior in traffic is more positively affected by the built environment of the public space than by conventional traffic control devices and regulations. A reason for the apparent paradox that reduced regulation leads to safer roads may be found by studying the risk compensation effect. We're losing our capacity for socially responsible behavior. The greater the number of prescriptions, the more people's sense of personal responsibility dwindles. Der Spiegel quotes Ehrman. When you don't exactly know who has right-of-way, you tend to seek eye contact with other road users. You automatically reduce your speed, you have contact with other people and you take greater care. Such schemes are claimed to have had positive effect on road safety, traffic volume, economic vitality, and community cohesion where a user's behavior becomes influenced and controlled by natural human interactions rather than by artificial regulation. Ehrman has stated that objections are more a matter of communication than design, stressing the importance of consulting all relevant groups during the design stage. The UK's Department for Transport issued national guidance on shared space in 2011. However, in July 2018 it reversed its position and instructed local authorities to halt all new shared space projects, with Transport Minister Nusrat Ghani stating they just don't work for blind and partially sighted people. Criticism. Reviewing the research that underpinned national policy in the UK, in 2011, Moody and Melia found that some of the claims made for shared space schemes were not justified by the evidence, particularly the claims that pedestrians are able to follow desire lines, and that shared space reduces traffic speeds. Their primary research in Ashford, Kent, suggested that in streets with high volumes of traffic, pedestrians are more likely to give way to vehicles than vice versa. Most people, but particularly women and older people, found the shared space intimidating and preferred the previous layout with conventional crossings. A study by Hammond and Musselwhite using a case study of Wide Marsh Street in Hereford found that if traffic volume was relatively low and speeds of vehicles slow anyway, then vulnerable road users found it easier to share the area with vehicles, including those blind or partially sighted and older people with mobility impairments. There are wide-ranging reservations about the practicality of the shared space philosophy where it involves the removal of features such as curbs. In a 2006 report from the Associated Press, it was commented that traditionalists in town planning departments say the schemes rob the motorists of vital information, and reported that a spokesman for Royal National Institute of Blind People criticized the removal of familiar features such as railings, curbs, and barriers. Shared space is opposed by many organizations representing blind, partially sighted, and deaf people. Some of their members avoid shared space areas entirely. Shared surfaces, which are generally used in shared space schemes, can cause concern for the blind and partially sighted who cannot visually negotiate their way with other road users, as the lack of separation implicit in these features has also removed their safe space. The UK's Guide Dogs for the Blind Association's Say No to Shared Streets campaign has the support of more than 30 other disability organisations. There have been similar concerns raised by other groups representing disabled people, including Leonard Cheshire Disability, the Royal National Institute for Deaf People, and MENCAP, who have noted problems when negotiating a route with motor vehicle users, leading them to challenge its fundamental premise. Lord Holmes' 2015 report Accidents by Design found that 63% of respondents reported a negative experience of shared space, and 35% said they actively avoided it. Lord Holmes attacked the concept as a recipe for confusion, chaos, and catastrophe. The Holmes report also noted serious issues for wheelchair users. Respondents who used wheelchairs stated that it was virtually impossible to locate a safe crossing point on roads with shared space. In July 2018, the UK DfT reversed its position on shared spaces due to the risk to disabled people, with Transport Minister Nusrat Ghani stating they just don't work. The Dutch Vijheidsberaad, Centre of Expertise on Bicycle Policy, has demonstrated ambivalence over shared space schemes, describing some benefits but also some drawbacks for the less assertive cyclist. Vijheidsberaad has noted that shared space has decreased car speeds but that some cyclists do not dare take priority. Instead, they dismount and wait for priority to be clearly given, then walk or ride across the intersection. A problem may be that they are met halfway by cars from the other direction and must rely on the drivers to give way of their own volition. Owing to low speeds and the cyclist's defensive behavior, this crossing strategy need not be unsafe in itself, but it most certainly is not convenient. In New Zealand, concerns about such limitations of the shared space concept have led, in cooperation with disability organizations, to the introduction of vehicle and obstruction-free corridors, accessible zones, along the building lines, i.e., in the areas where footpaths would normally be located, to provide a safe route in the shared spaces being introduced. The British Transport Research Laboratory found that below flows of 90 vehicles per hour adult pedestrians were prepared to mingle with traffic. When flows reached 110 vehicles per hour, they used the width between frontages as if it were a traditional road. A similar value is used to define suitability for a woonharve. Numerous towns and cities around the world have implemented schemes with elements based on the shared space principles. Shared space streets are streets that are open to motor traffic, with no difference in levels or markings of space for different users. Shared space may be appropriate in new residential developments. It provides access to a small number of properties where there is no through motor vehicle traffic. This design of streets can have a positive impact on the quality of the built environment. It reduces the dominance of motor traffic and provides opportunities to define the look of the area through surfacing. Any shared surface should include design measures to help reduce the speeds of vehicles, ensuring that all road users can share the space on equal terms. The right choice of surface can also help reduce vehicle speeds. Shared surfaces can cause problems for some disabled people and pose particular risks to people with sensory and/or information processing differences. Careful attention should be paid to managing parking, the positioning and quantity of planting and street furniture, tactile features for blind or vision impaired people which are required to enable them to navigate the space, drainage, which needs particular care because of the lack of conventional carriageway crossfalls and curbs. Center line drainage can help in identifying the street as a shared surface. Shared space should not be confused with shared use, which is an off-carriageway route available for use by both pedestrians and cyclists. Thank you for watching this video.